A monk was sentenced to die, sealed alive inside a wall for breaking his vows. But before they carried it out, he made an offer. He said that if they let him live, he'd create a book that held all human knowledge. Bible, history, medicine, everything. One book, one night. When he realized he couldn't finish it in time, he prayed. Not to God, to the devil. The book was finished by morning. This episode is about the Codex Gigas, the Devil's Bible, a massive real-life manuscript that includes scripture, spells, rituals, and a full-page portrait of Satan. For centuries, it's been passed around, looted, hidden, and blamed for more than a few unexplained events. 10 pages were cut out, and no one knows what they said. The book still exists, and some people still think it's waiting to be finished. There's a book that lives in a Swedish library, locked behind glass, too big for any normal human to casually pick up without risking a hernia. It weighs 165 pounds. It stands 3 feet tall, and it's been called a lot of things over the years, but most people know it as the Devil's Bible, because that's not unsettling at all. The official name is the Codex Gigas, and it's the kind of artifact that makes historians whisper and conspiracy theorists foam at the mouth. Legend says it was written in a single night by a monk who, after breaking his religious vows, was sentenced to be walled up alive. So naturally, his solution was to promise he could create the biggest book ever made, overnight. Spoiler, he did not finish in time. And the plot twist there is he asked the devil for help. And when the sun came up, the book was done. And so was the monk's soul. I mean, I'm assuming that anyway. The book is massive, by the way. It's strange, full of contradictions. It contains the entire Bible and also spells. It has prayers, right next to a full-page illustration of Satan, which, even by medieval standards, feels like a red flag. Today, it's mostly treated like a historical oddity. But the stories that follow this book around, curses, missing pages, people losing their minds after spending too much time near it. So what's actually inside this thing? And who really wrote it? And why does it feel like it doesn't want to be understood? Let's talk about the Codex Gigas and why some people think it still belongs to the devil. I feel like that part needs some kind of dramatic music. Dun dun dun. Okay, so according to legend, the Codex Gigas was written by a monk named Herman the Recluse. He lived in a Benedictine monastery in Bohemia in the 1200s. No one's entirely sure what he did wrong, but whatever it was serious enough that other monks decided the appropriate punishment was to seal him inside a wall and let him die. Before they could carry it out, Herman offered them a deal. He said that if they let him live, he would create a book that contained all human knowledge within it, something that would glorify the monastery forever. The catch? He promised to finish it in a single night. The monks said, sure, knock yourself out. That's probably not verbatim, but it was something along those lines, I'm sure. But at some point, probably a few hours in, it became clear he wasn't going to make it. So the story goes, he did what people in legends always seem to do when they run out of options. He prayed, but not to God. He prayed to the devil. The next morning, the book was finished. Hundreds of pages of perfect calligraphy, all in the same handwriting. And not just the Bible. This thing also included ancient histories, medical texts, spells, exorcisms, and a calendar full of death dates. And right in the middle of it, taking up an entire page by itself, was the devil. Green face, red tongue, clawed hands, alone in a blank space, just staring. Whether the story is true or not doesn't really matter. The book exists, so that part of it at least is true. The portrait exists, and the idea that someone might have traded their soul to finish it, that part stuck. Because even in a time when people were terrified of sin, this felt like something worse, like proof, and people remembered. So let's talk about what's actually in this thing and what it's made of. Because the Codex Gigas isn't just big, it's the largest surviving medieval manuscript in the world. It's over 3 feet tall, nearly 2 feet wide, and weighs somewhere around 165 pounds. It's made from animal skin, and a lot of it. Most estimates say that it took about 160 donkeys or calves, they're not really sure, but it took about 160 of those to make enough parchment to create 620 pages. And what's inside those pages is just as strange. The first half of the book is the Bible, as I mentioned, the entire thing, Old and New Testament. But after that, it veers off into something else entirely. There are Jewish histories written by Flavius Josephus, a medieval encyclopedia, a collection of medical texts that include treatments for things like fevers, broken bones, and something called elf sickness. And scattered between it all, prayers, rituals, and spells. Not all of them are harmless. Some of the spells are written to catch thieves. Others are meant to protect the reader from evil. There are even rituals for exorcism, instructions for how to drive out a demon, just in case you find yourself in that situation. Tucked into the back is a calendar listing the names and death dates of about 1,500 people, mostly monks and important religious figures, but a lot of those names have never been identified. And then there's the portrait that I've mentioned, a full-page illustration of the devil with the green skin, the red tongue, the claws raised. But opposite of that portrait is a picture of heaven, like the two are facing off. It doesn't explain itself. Not that it really has to, it's a strange book. But the book was never just about scripture. It was trying to be something bigger, something that held every piece of knowledge the monk could gather, sacred or otherwise. And maybe that's what makes it so unsettling. It wasn't written to comfort. It was written to contain knowledge, all of it. And I think it's important that we revisit this portrait of the devil, because that's why people don't just call it the Codex Gigas. They call it the Devil's Bible. It's because of this portrait, and it's because of what it symbolizes. I mentioned he has a pale green face and there small red eyes, and a long red tongue curls down out of his mouth. His hands are clawed. They're raised like he's either stretching or reaching for something. He wears a loincloth made out of ermine, which was a symbol of royalty in the Middle Ages. So the symbolism here is, this isn't just a demon. The devil is the king. It's portraying the devil as a king. And what makes it stranger is the timing. That portrait is followed by a series of spells, 3 of them, along with 2 ritual formulas. One of them is for protection, one is for curing fevers, and one is supposed to help you catch a thief. But there's no explanation for why they're placed there, of all places, right after the devil's image. But it feels intentional, like whoever put the book together was trying to contain something or prepare for something. And the more you look at it, the more that the illustration feels like it was something added because it had to be, not because someone wanted it to be there. You can believe the monk made a deal with the devil or not, but someone took the time to give him a page all to himself, and that's not something people do by accident. Now let's shift to the book's strange journey over history. After it was finished, the Codex Gigas did not stay in the monastery for very long. The place that created it was small and struggling. Not long after the book was completed, the monks there pawned it off, probably to pay off some debt, which means one of the most mysterious books in history started its life as collateral. It passed through a few different monasteries before it ended up in Prague in the late 1500s, where it caught the attention of Emperor Rudolf II. He had a reputation for collecting anything connected to alchemy, magic, or the occult. And this book, with its mix of scripture and sorcery and that massive devil portrait, fit right in. After Rudolf, the book stayed in Prague until 1648, when Swedish troops invaded during the 30 Years' War. They looted the city, took everything they could carry, and brought the Codex Gigas back to Stockholm. And that's where it's been ever since, locked away in the National Library of Sweden. But even there, it has caused problems. In 1697, the royal castle in Stockholm caught fire. The codex was inside. Librarians rushed to save it. Again, this thing weighs 165 pounds, so it wasn't exactly a quick rescue. One of them threw it out a window to keep it from burning. It survived the fall. Someone standing below did not. At least 10 pages of the Codex Gigas are missing, cut out, and no one knows when it happened or why it happened. Some say they held dangerous knowledge, maybe even a spell meant to summon the devil or the end of the world. No proof, just silence where words used to be. In the 1800s, a night watchman got locked away in the library overnight, alone with a codex. By morning, they found him hiding under a table, shaking, rambling about books flying off shelves and dancing around the devil's Bible. He was never the same again. Modern experts say it was written by one person, not in a night, but over decades. The handwriting stays consistent from beginning to end. Same ink, same style, a lifetime of work by a single scribe. No fire, no brimstone, just a monk with a plan and a lot of time. And also access to a lot of donkeys, apparently. Still, the devil's portrait is there. So are the spells and the missing pages. They've never been found. So you can visit the Codex, by the way, today, anytime you want to, as long as it's operating hours. It's in Sweden behind glass. Most people see it as a relic, a piece of history, but some people don't. Some say it's still unfinished, like a contract, still waiting for the other signature. Thanks for listening to this episode of 10-Minute Mystery. If you liked it, please be sure to hit subscribe wherever you're listening and also leave a review. It helps other curious minds find the show. And if you want more stories, but with a darker vibe, check out my other podcast, 10-Minute Murder. It's still brief and bingeable. See you next time.